You're on TV.
Why don't you just start by telling
Hello.
I'm on Candy Cam.
You're on
Hello.
Candid Camera.
what
Hi.
is the date today?
April
Today
3rd.
is April 3rd, 2002, on a Wednesday. And Molly's here. Tom just went home,
There's Molly.
and should get this before Tom.
And police is over there in the background.
There's Mom.
Don't put it on me.
Already ruining it with tape.
No, it's not doing it.
Okay, well, just tell me. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. When were you born?
I was born April 25th, 1924,
Where?
Albion, New York.
And,
Arnold Gregory Hospital.
and your parents were?
Amos and Mary and Blanche Geese.
And did you
And I was the fifth of five kids. The others were Bill, Dick, Jack, and Betty.
And was anybody else there when you were born?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I was.
Other than Dr. Cooper was probably there when I was born.
And when were your brothers and sisters born? Do you know their years?
Yeah, Bill was born in 1914, Dick in 1916, Betty or Jack in about 1918, Betty about 1921, and that's as close as I can get right now.
So that makes you the baby, huh?
I'm the baby.
Okay, and your father's full name was?
Amos Wixon, baby.
And your mother's?
Blanche, you know what his middle name was, just Blanche Wilcox, baby. I don't know what
Her
that was.
maiden name was
Wilcox was her maiden name, right?
Okay.
And I think her mother's name might have had a name of Seaman, S-E-A-M-O-N,
Her last name? Her mother's maiden name?
I believe. I got that from one of my mother's sisters.
Oh, do you know when your mother was born?
Sure is Bella.
My mother was born April 27th, I think, 1883.
And your father?
Father, I think, was born about 1880, and I was February 22nd. 1880, I believe.
Okay. Did you have any nicknames?
Me?
Yeah.
Mostly Butch or Red or Carrot Top sometimes.
Okay.
No egghead or
No head name?
knucklehead or...
No, I wasn't that smart.
No, those are his titles for you kids.
What did your father do for a living?
My father ran a dry goods store
You don't
in
know what
Albion,
that
New
is
York.
anymore.
A dry goods store just sold like in the old days, back in the 20s and early 30s, dry goods where you go in and buy material and make drapes and clothing and stuff like that. So,
Did your mother have a job?
no, my mother never worked until after my dad died. Then she worked at a state prison.
Oh, I thought she was a nurse.
She told me once that she'd studied nursing in Rochester when she was younger.
Never read that.
Do you know the address? Your address of your house when you were a kid?
Gee, I don't know the number of it, but it was at Park Street in Albion.
Do you remember any of your grandparents?
No, they were all gone. Well, I may have met my grandmother, Bedon. My grandparents, Bedon's side, were in Croswell, Michigan.
Bedon. I've never heard of pronounce that way.
Well, anyway,
I didn't do it.
those grandparents were in Michigan, Croswell, and I think I do remember meeting my grandmother. That would be my father's mother,
And
and his sister, who was Mary Beaton.
And they lived in Croswell, which is on the east side of Michigan, right?
Right.
In the Thumb area?
No, it's not up that far. It's just not far north of Fort Huron.
Oh, okay.
And there's another town nearby. In fact, there's a place called Beaton's Corners there.
Is it a
Yeah.
town?
Huh?
A town?
No, I just guess it's got corners. I don't remember that much about it. I was very little when I went there. My mother used to take me, and we'd get to Buffalo, and then we'd take the boat across to Lake Erie, to Lake Michigan, to
Oh,
Fort Huron, I think. But I don't remember much about that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a favorite aunt or a favorite uncle?
Yeah, my Uncle Bud Wilcox and my Aunt Elizabeth, he married her, she was from Shreveport, Louisiana. But he was my mother's younger brother, Bud Wilcox. Eugene Welcome Wilcox.
We have Bud's picture. Okay, tell me the naughtiest thing you ever did when you were a kid.
Oh, when I was a kid, I can tell you.
Kicked over the rope
No, I really didn't. I don't remember doing that at all. But I do remember when I was in school, elementary school, that
What's in it?
Street vodka.
that I went in the 5 and 10 and I stole something.
You remember that?
I remember that, and I remember my brother Jack just beating the hell out of me when he found out about it.
He did?
And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was just being kids, all the kids did it. They'd win the 5 and 10 kind of deal. It was J.J. Newberry's. And,
He beat the hell out of you?
well, I remember, yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember if he beat the hell out of me.
Did your parents find out?
I don't know. By then, my dad was gone. Of course, my mother was probably not home. Was working in the state school.
So did
She
your...
only came home one day every 2 weeks.
She did?
She worked for, right.
Well, who took care of you?
They hired what they called in those days, a maid, a Polish maid.
Oh.
And, it's almost embarrassing to say it now, but the Polish people lived in one part of town and they did act a lot as household servants. And she was our maid.
This is in
And
Albion?
we had several of them, but Rose was one, and Rose Mack. She was a wonderful lady, wonderful woman.
And this is in Albion?
Right,
You lived your whole life in Albion?
yes. So
Till you met me.
I met you when we moved to Medina, and then we changed it.
Do you remember a bad winter storm ever when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah, and did you do a lot of sledding and stuff?
Well, we used to try to ski, but we didn't have very good equipment. But we did a lot of sledding right on the street. Academy Street, there was a good hill there. We'd take our sleds and go down that hill.
Do you remember the first movie you ever saw?
No, but it was probably a cowboy movie, and I remember I'd be sitting there Saturday afternoon, he'd get a nickel for candy, and then, I don't know how long the movies would be on, but I'd probably sit through it as many times as I could until they came to get me. And I'd sit right down the front row, and they'd come get us out of the movie, my family would.
Yeah. Did you go with friends?
Probably, I don't know.
Do you remember your first girlfriend?
Geez, that's a story of my life, but very dim. I don't remember much of my girl.
No, nobody in
No, I
high
really
school?
don't. Bee Hazard, I liked this girl named Bee Hazard. My first girl that I liked, I think.
High school?
It was probably before high school. That could have been, I don't know.
Okay. So you don't remember your first kiss or anything like that?
No, I really don't. I really don't.
Okay.
What
We're not
else
gonna
you
get
gonna
much more
ask?
personal than
All
that.
right, all right. So you probably didn't have TV, did you?
No.
When was the first time you ever had TV?
Well, you were a baby.
So
When we got our
like
first
30
television.
years ago? Okay.
30?
Just kidding.
I remember when we were in Holland, and we were sitting out in the kitchen, and we had a tornado warning, so we had an old radio that we put up on top of the refrigerator that we were listening to, and you didn't know what that was. When we had the radio and listened to the weather, you couldn't understand what that was, because you had only seen television. You didn't know what radio was. You were in the high chair.
I remember that. I think that
Gee,
I had a name for that radio.
don't
I
know,
called the radio the Tornado.
Could be.
You
It could
told
be.
me that I called it the Tornado because one time that tornado that came through West Michigan back in the late 50s,
Oh, yeah, really.
huge
It's down in
tornado.
Zealand.
What did you do to the radio?
I
Nothing.
called, you were listening to
We
the
were listening
radio.
to it.
listening to
We'll
the
have to get
weather.
the weather.
Okay, do you have any memories of elementary school at all? Anything, did you go to Catholic school or public school?
No, I
or-
went to public school, and I do remember that old school down there in Academy Street, but, and I just remember mostly my teachers, like, nice teachers.
Did you have a favorite teacher?
Oh, I think they're all pretty much favorites of mine. They were very nice. I remember sitting in the auditorium. They used to take us in there once a while. They put a great big Atwater Kent radio up there, and they tried to instill some music appreciation on it. And listening to Walter Gamroch program on the radio. And I also remember I was in a play at one point. And this was in kindergarten or first or something, I think. But I had to put my head through something that was a flower, maybe. And I don't remember if I had anything to say, but I was kind of upset because my mother couldn't be there to see me in that play. She was working.
I remember that.
And I started to take saxophone lessons, and I didn't like the music teacher, so I quit that. That's all I remember about my
Anything
family.
junior high or high school you remember? Favorite teachers or favorite classes or anything?
No, I just had some great teachers, and,
Principal?
Charlie Anderson, the principal, and Carl Bergeson, the superintendent. They're just great people. That's all I remember.
What did you
And
think?
Coach Spiridalis played a lot of football.
Right, you told me you had a scholarship, football scholarship.
I had a
To
couple
where?
of them.
A couple of them.
Well, one to Hofstra down there on Long Island, and one to, I could have gone to Hiram College out in Ohio, where my brother Dick had gone to.
Why didn't you go to the
Hiram College.
Yeah, it's south of Ashtabula in Hiram, Ohio.
Why didn't you go?
I don't know.
And you didn't
Well, the
go
war
because
came
the
along.
war came along.
The war came along, and most
Was
of
that the same year you graduated, all of a sudden you decided to
No, it
enlist?
wasn't. In fact, I had gone back for a postgraduate course. I had graduated in June, went back to a postgraduate course, and then the war came in December.
42?
I graduated in June of '41.
And then you enlisted?
Jimmy, that scares me, huh?
And you enlisted?
I saw a picture in Collier's magazine of a good-looking guy looking through a sextant that said, "On top, be an officer." So I put my name and address down, and wasn't much longer that I was on a train to.
This was after Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
How long after Pearl
This
Harbor
was
was it?
probably about May or June of '42, that I was on a train to New York City.
Who was the
And
So
in
just
those
when you
days,
turned
in
18.
1942, when my family, my dad was gone, we didn't have a car. Lucky trip to Rochester was a big deal, which is like 35 miles away. And here I am going to the big city of New York on a train.
You just turned 18.
And you'd never been on a train
Right.
before?
I've never been on a train before.
You never-
No.
You never tried to get on a freight train or anything like that?
No, I didn't do that. But I did get there and get to Penn Station, and I started to ask some questions. I had to go down to 33 Pine Street to check in for the Navy place there. And you just ask people, and they were so nice. They'd say, "Well, here, take this subway, and you have to go here to get on that subway." And so you'd go there, and then you'd get on the train and say, "I want to get 33 Pine," and somebody said next to you, "Oh, I'll show you where to get off." Well, and if they got off first, then somebody else would know that you were looking, and they'd show you. It's just a very civil place in those days.
But where were you heading?
I was headed for Kings Point, New York, which is in Great Neck, for the United States Merchant Marine Academy. At that point, I must have been 18.
Well, you would have been 18 in May of 42.
Right.
Actually.
April 42, right.
And so then how long were you
Then I went to school there for about, I can't remember, 8 or 10 weeks, and then after that, for the preliminary training that you got, then you had to go to sea on a merchant ship and practice. Now, when you went to the Merchant Marine Academy, you could train to be a deck officer or an engineering officer. And my brother Jack had gone to a private school, New York State Merchant Marine Academy. He was an engineering officer, so that's what I decided I wanted. So we had to go to sea and work on one of these merchant ships, working in the engine room, learning some of the basics of operating an engine on a merchant ship. And this was a really old ship that we used to haul bauxite from Cuba. I mean, used to haul sugar from Cuba. But we were on a convoy and we had to go to Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia, we went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and then Georgetown, British Guiana. No, then to Trinidad, then to Georgetown, British Guiana. We pick up some bauxite up the river, about 30 miles, go up the river and pick up some bauxite. And because the river wasn't deep, you couldn't only pick up so much bauxite. You had to go back down to Georgetown and they'd fill the rest of the ship with bauxite. And we'd get a convoy to go to Trinidad, and then Trinidad a convoy to Guantanamo, and then Guantanamo up to Mobile, Alabama. I made that trip 3 times.
This is part of the Navy or Merchant
Well,
Marine?
it's part of my training in the Merchant Marine to get my license.
Before you could join
And
the
then I
Navy.
went back to school for about 8 months then, and in December 31st, I graduated as a marine engineer, or licensed as a marine engineer, and I had an option. I could go into the Merchant Marine as an engineering officer on a merchant ship, or I could get my commission in the Navy, and I wanted to be in the Navy real badly. So I took my commission in the Navy. And my first assignment in the Navy was in San Diego at Balboa Park. I had a bachelor officer's quarters there. And I didn't want to stay there very long because I knew the ship was coming into Long Beach or Terminal Island, California, to be repaired because it had been hit by a torpedo. And so I was coming in to be repaired, and so I went there until the ship came in, and then while that ship was being repaired, I was stationed there and got aboard the ship and learned a lot about the engineering functions of that particular ship. And later in June of '44, that would be, we went to sea. And then we spent our time and went to Hawaii, and then out into Guam, Saipan, and Chingyan, and then we went down into Marianas, Ulysses Atoll, and then up into Iwo Jima, and then into Okinawa,
Leave some room on there for me.
and then back to the United
We
States.
got another tape.
And I got relieved from that ship and went to Philadelphia, put another ship in commission. But I got on that ship and we were going through the canal and out into Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and my knee started to bother me, so I had an operation, and I operated on my cartilage on my knee, and then I got the ship had already left, so I had enough points to get out of the Navy and came back home. Then I met Mary Lou, and the rest of the story is hers.
What's
Oh,
any
that's
truth?
sad.
Any truth to the story that your brother was killed on the same ship that?
Now, my brother, Jack, got into the Navy. He was called and drafted into the Navy from, he was working for the United Fruit Lines on one of their ships, and but they called him into the Navy, and just before the war, when things started to look bad, and he was assigned to a fleet oiler, like I was on, but he was on the A01. I was on the A067.
For some reason,
But
I thought I heard that.
his ship was in the Guadalcanal area, and they were attacked by some Japanese bombers, and a bomb went right down into the engine room, and he was killed. That was, so we were both on fleet oilers, but he was on a real old one.
So when you got out of the Navy then, is that when you met Mom?
That's when I met Mom.
How? How'd you meet her?
Our mothers.
I think our mothers hooked us up.
They did?
Yeah.
It was an arranged marriage?
Yeah.
Well, what, no,
They stood and watched all the time.
Did they know each other? Were they
oh
friends?
yeah, they were
Yeah,
friends.
they were big friends.
I don't know how they got to.
From
know each
Rochester
other.
or from
From
Albany?
No, from Elgin. I don't know how they ever got to be friends. Do you? They were at the lake. Mother was never at the lake. Unless they had some common friends.
Maybe Mother worked with her at the
State school?
But I thought you went to high school together.
Well, we were in high school, but she was 2 years behind me. They held her back. She had to have.
He lied.
Right.
And but anyway, I was 2 years ahead of her. And we knew each other. We've got pictures. I was business editor of the school newspaper, and she was doing something for the school newspaper, and we have a picture of it. And we sang a lot together in different, we were both in the choir.
Sweet.
Glee
So you sort of remember each other, but then you started dating in high school.
club. Right. No, we never dated in high school.
I mean, after you got back.
Right.
And what was your first date?
Well, you tell her. You tell her. It's up to you. I've done all the talking.
Where did you go? Do you remember?
Was that Laurel Delano's party? We were up in Berry Center, and
Yeah,
somebody
that's
asked us to a
right.
party, and I don't know
We both
who
were
drove.
like
See, I
in the
never
same
had a car, so we always depended on somebody else for a ride somewhere.
He was a year ahead of me at school.
Did you go back to college when you got out of the...
No,
Maybe?
I finally bought an automobile, and to get back to Forest to work for the Heinz Company in Medina, and at that same time I went to school at the University of Rochester a couple nights a week. And after that, I could date her because I could get to the lake where she lived. And,
Yeah, in fact, Tom tells me about taking a ride there down to the lake, and you pointed out a dirt road that you used to go parking on.
Mother part that probably told her that. Told him I would never talk to her.
You lied.
Down by Point Breeze?
Yeah.
And he said the road looks just the same?
Well, it's just right down the street from where she lives, her cottage.
Yeah, we had a cottage down there.
So,
And then, how many years later did you get married?
well, let's see, I got out of that was about 2 years maybe, before we were probably dated for a couple of years before we got married. Right?
Well, I was 3 years before.
And
Oh,
what were
yeah.
you doing? What was your job when you got married?
I was working for the Heinz Company.
You were working for the Heinz Company.
In Medina, New York. And your mother was working for a while at the state school as a nurse. And then she went to work for the Heinz Company as a nurse.
Oh, I didn't know that. And then you ended up
In Chambersburg, Pennsylvania.
in Chambersburg.
For a couple of years, then to Tracy, California, and then to Holland, Michigan, and then to,
Anything exciting happen to you while you were in Tracy?
no, we had a baby.
That's what I was getting
We
at.
just, that's our first little baby.
He was trying to forget it. I was trying to forget about that for,
Her name was Mary Lewis.
I don't want to say how many years.
Huh?
What year was that?
That was in 1952. And she was born in Stockton, California, St. Joseph's Hospital.
Stockton?
And what a doll, what a
Oh,
cute
you're
baby.
a Stockton baby?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
what a cute,
And so what did you do while I was being born?
what's a movie? I got kicked out of the labor room. She didn't want me around.
They didn't let fathers in that back then. did
Well, they let you in the labor room, but she wouldn't even let me in there, and she was there 2 days, I think, so.
What do you mean a labor room?
Delivery room.
The delivery room or the
No,
pre-delivery?
there's a-
Free delivery is called the
It's
labor
pretty-
room.
it's one of
Oh,
them.
okay.
Yeah, Jim, your babies were born in the hallway, weren't they?
I think
Well,
Jeff was.
Well, I think one of you were born in the hallway at Albion, I think.
Well, so then, after I was born, what movie did you see, Laura?
See, I don't know, Miracle on 34th Street? That wouldn't have been, that's a Christmas movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't remember what movie I saw. I don't even remember if I went to a movie, so she tells me that.
I've heard that story too. So then you moved to where?
Well, after that, we moved to Holland, Michigan. Worked for the Heinz Company, then left Heinz Company, went to work for Frieden, selling business equipment. Then went to work for Guardsman. And how far do you want me to go with this? I went to Guardsman. Then we moved out here to California, and I left Guardsman and went to work for Dick, what's his name, for a while. And then I got a job with Monex and worked there for about 8 years.
And you had 3 more kids.
In the meantime, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I guess getting back to when you were a kid, what was your favorite thing to do on the weekends?
I don't know, I worked a lot. I either played football or tennis all the time when I was in school, or I worked. I worked at a soda fountain, bus stop, sort of place, and it was a soda fountain and kind of a diner for quick food. And if I wasn't working there, I worked at Loblaws, or I worked at the EMP. Then on weekends, they had a town club, and I'd go work there at night, and they're having dinner on Sunday night. They'd have big dinner, and I'd go be a waiter at that place.
It's a restaurant?
Yeah.
Was
And other, I don't remember much about. I like sports and had a lot of friends.
Did you have a best friend
Hung out.
when you were a kid? Elementary school, who was your best friend?
You volunteer?
Bill didn't come along. Bill was older than I was, and we didn't get that close together until after the war, until after we got home from the war. I don't know. I just, Bud Hudson, that was after the war. During school, Eddie Ronan, Tom McNall. Tom McNall and Dick Herbie were my friends in high school. We used to hang around a lot together.
Okay, so now that you're living in California, can you tell what's your favorite place you ever lived?
Well, of course, we love it where we are now. Of course, we loved it in Anaheim too when I was working, but it was too crowded there, and we like it much more here where we are, don't we, Ron?
Your favorite place you've ever lived in your life? You've lived in quite a few different places.
I don't know, of course, we love Holland. Was a great place. Just because raising you kids in Holland was such a pleasure. And, it's a great place to raise a family. We had a nice home, didn't we?
Who's your favorite kid? I'm just kidding. No. Okay, just tell me a story. Do you have any stories to tell? What's the worst thing that ever happened to any of your kids?
The worst thing that happened to any of my kids. Well, no. The worst thing that happened, I remember Molly starting to scream in bed one night, and she had this arthritis. What was it? She had her legs were just killing her, and then the doctor wouldn't let us send her to a Catholic school because he didn't want her. We had to go outside at lunchtime, so we sent her to a school right behind us, Thomas Jefferson. But she'd been ill. She'd had something the matter with her. I don't think she was in the hospital.
Yeah, I was in the hospital.
Huh?
I remember being in the hospital.
Yeah.
With what?
They told me I had rheumatoid arthritis.
That's right, rheumatoid arthritis. And, it was you. I only remember that one night you were screaming. Right?
I remember being in the
That was a
hospital.
bad night. And then, of course, Dick getting that damn croup, and you having a croup, too. They put Dick in the hospital at night with a croup and a tracheotomy tube sitting next to the bed. He was there for a couple of days, too.
Tubing right into his lungs.
Hmm. And then Tom, of course, had that heart thing.
Tom had the heart thing, Jim broke something, you broke an arm,
Never broke anything in my life.
and you broke something in your hand and you couldn't play football anymore.
Oh, yeah, you know, you're right, I did break the finger.
You did break the finger,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was a heroin crack.
Well, what?
Hmm.
I don't know, I was never in the hospital with asthma, was I? I seem to remember when I was a kid, but I don't think I ever was in the hospital.
Oh, you were, oh God, that was
With an
awful.
oxygen tent or something?
Oh, you
I was
used to
thinking that was
scream,
Dick.
you used to get the worst migraine headaches when you were a
Well,
baby.
migraines, yeah.
That
I-
was awful.
I still
Then
remember
she
that.
took you to the hospital to have a EKG and stuff like
I
that.
still remember that. I was about 5.
You weren't even that old,
I
you were,
remember we lived on 26th Street.
you know, at St. Mary's, and
I remember
the
that.
nurse was a bitch. Mary Lou was trying to keep giving you a hard time, and she was putting all these electrodes on you, and you were, oh, I don't know, it was
You were
awful.
screaming and she was what she is.
Here, I have a little story here about it's a Heinz pickle factory joke. Bill worked in a pickle factory. He'd been employed there for a number of years when he came home one day to confess to his wife that he had a terrible compulsion. He had an urge to stick his penis into the pickle slicer. His wife suggested that he should see a sex therapist to talk about it, but Bill indicated that he'd be too embarrassed. He vowed to overcome the compulsion on his own. One day, a few weeks later, Bill came home. His wife could see at once that something was seriously wrong. "What's wrong, Bill?" she asked. "Remember that I told you I had this tremendous urge to put my penis into the pickle slicer?" "Oh, Bill, you didn't." "Yes, I did." "My God, Bill, what happened?" "I got fired." "No, Bill, I mean what happens with a pickle slicer?" "Oh, she got fired too." That's a pickle joke.
Okay. Thanks for sharing
Send
that.
it to
Jim.
the Heinz company.
That's gonna be the highlight of that
Yeah.
video.
$1,000.
Okay, I'm gonna stop this because I think we're just about done with our 30 minutes here.
You think so? You want to just keep letting it going?
Well, I'm thinking maybe we should put the other
Let
one
it
in.
go.
I'm thinking we should just put the other one in and start.
There was
It says on. This will stop.
Well, the one thing that you didn't ask, the thing I remember is you were going to get a job in Gary, Indiana for...
Peoria.
Peoria, that's right. I was with Frieden, and I know the company was going bad, and the people at Garsman wanted to hire me, and I told the manager at Frieden that I was going to quit unless I could get another job, and they came at the last minute and said I could have the managership at Peoria. Well, that's, of course, the best thing that ever happened to me was the fact they took the job at Guardsman, because Frieden then went broke, and they finally ended up just was nothing left in the company. But, of course, that was one of the reasons that I took the job at Guardsman, because I knew, I mean, I didn't like the sound of what was going on at Frieden.
Frieden didn't become part of NCR or...
No. The only thing that's left of Frieden, I think they tried to come out with a postage meter, and
Well, that was NCR, wasn't it? That...
against Pitney Bowes, but I don't think they ever perfected it or ever got, well, I know they did, because somebody was selling. Anyway, they just let the ball drop. Poor management on the side of the business that I was in. Of course, then they also made the calculator, and those just rotary calculators for boat anchors now. And I had the little handheld calculators that do everything. And they cost like $5 now. So,
Okay, one more thing. What was your favorite thing to do with your children when they were young?
oh, I still miss Sunday nights when we make popcorn. Watch Lassie.
I don't think that's what she's driving.
Bonanza.
Bonanza, but I love, and I miss it to this day. I really miss the 4th of July. When the bombs would go off and we'd hug them, and they'd get scared.
I don't think that's still what she's driving.
It's one of the things I like to do with the kids,
What do you think I'm doing now?
and go to the pool and watch them swim.
The favorite thing you did with the children?
Yeah.
A single little event.
Oh, well,
No, I'm driving at something here, but I guess Molly and I were thinking the same.
oh, okay, what are you driving at?
Ride a croc horse.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like, no, it was, just so much fun.
Remember that? So ride a croc horse,
My
and then we
mother
crossed to
loved
see
it.
a lady on a white horse.
You got it
It's
from
right-
me.
Bells on her fingers
I
and-
taught
I
him to
do that to your grandkids.
It was ride a cock horse.
Was it a cock
Cock
horse?
horse.
Huh?
Whatever it is.
Ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross.
And I don't know where those
Little
words
white
come
lady
from.
on a white horse. What?
With bells on her
Rings
fingers
on her
and
fingers.
Rings on her fingers and
bells on her toes.
She shall have music wherever she goes. That's
Okay.
my family's thing.
That was your family that started that, huh?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
stole that from the Brannigans?
Okay.
The
No.
Brannigans were,
Oh, no.
none of that kind of stuff? Because I bet she'll say that. I bet she'll say.
No, no, no.
Because I've heard her say that.
No.
Man, I beaten by this and, you know.
No way. No, it's.
Different
no way.
religion, right?
No, not really, because Mom was a Catholic, became a Catholic same time
So it's probably because you.
my mother was.
She's always been a Catholic.
My mother was confirmed
Oh,
in the
your
church
mom.
at the same time I was. We never had any problems with religion, and I, to this day, my mother-in-law was a wonderful woman, and so was her father.
Well, maybe it's because the mothers knew each other.
No,
Usually the
they were really
families,
good
you know,
friends. This was, never had a problem between
Okay.
the families.
How did they know each other?
I'm not sure. They must have had some common friends, but I remember the first hearing about the first time when the war was over. Mother was down at their cottage at the lake, and they had a big steak deal going on, a steak roast. But, of course, I wasn't around at the time. I don't know where Mary Lou was. Gee, you scared me.
Is that supposed to just, it's heavy and so when you pick up a normal club, it'll be like, you could really whack it?
Supposed to train your muscles.
So you're not supposed to really hit balls with that then?
No.
I wonder if that'd be a good thing to get Kevin.
Turn it off. You know, it tells you to swing with your right hand. Swing your right hand through the ball. If anything, I always use the left hand.
Right, that's
So
where I
use your right hand to squish the club head.
You didn't talk much about playing golf, but you played a lot of golf when you were younger, didn't you?
No, I didn't play much. I played when I got out of the Navy for a while. I belonged to Country Club over at Stafford, but that was maybe about a year before we were married. Then I don't know. I can hardly remember.
Was that during the Bobby Jones era, or no, that was during the Ben Hogan and Byron Nelson, right?
I don't know. I know. I used to watch a lot of football, but I don't remember watching much golf.
No, golf didn't really make a dent in TV until Houston, Shell.
Well,
Remember
that Firestone deal.
It was Arnold Palmer, actually, that revolutionized golf on TV.
What was your favorite vacation with the family ever?
Well, we had a nice time down there in Florida a couple of times. Lost Tree Village one was fun. That's the time you went down, you met Susie.
Oh, yeah.
You ever hear anything more from her?
No.
But that's the time that Dick and I ran into Jack Nicklaus,
Oh.
the driving range, and I started to talk to Jack, and Dick said, "You can't talk to him, don't talk to him." And asked him a couple questions, and then when we were leaving, we were waiting for Mom to come pick us up in the car. And I said, Jack, good luck next week. And next week he was playing at the Masters, and he won.
He did?
Won the Masters.
Well, Dick tells a really funny story. Just recently he told me a story about one time you guys were going to Florida. He was in college.
Oh, that's
Sit down.
unreal. That's unreal.
And then he decided that he was gonna make your day and go on vacation with you.
Well, it so
So-
happened, we were working at Disneyland. We were staying at the Disneyland Hotel. And
Orlando?
I was at a meeting, but Mom and one of the people at my company, and I think it's Ken Gilchrist's wife, were taking that ride across to go into the park from the hotel. And all of a sudden somebody yelled, "Hey Mom, hey Mom," you know, and Dick's not very loud, but everybody can hear him in the park.
God.
And he'd come down from Ann Arbor on a Delta Airlines flight. I think he was the only one on it, and the girls put him in first class. And he was gonna meet somebody in Orlando who never showed up, so we got stuck with him for the rest of our week.
Right.
So-
He said, and he was so funny because he said, I really thought they'd be glad to see me, but you know what? They really weren't.
we-
They wanted to be by themselves. He said, God,
We were driving back north, and I'll never forget this. We're going up somewhere and driving along this turnpike, and there was a big old car behind me, a limousine. And for some reason, we went for miles and miles and miles, and we were looking for a place to stay. Well, we got off the freeway and pulled into this one place and went into the motel that we wanted. And this big limousine pulled into one of these Motel 6s. They got all the money, and here I'm going in another one. And Mary Lou and I wanted to be alone, so we got 2 rooms. She said, "What the hell did you get 2 rooms for?" I said, "Well, they were full. We didn't get 2 rooms."
I can't get that yet. I didn't hear all of it.
well, Dick thought he was gonna do you guys a big favor by showing up on a vacation when he was
Yeah.
going to college. And you were off by yourselves in Florida. And
Oh,
Dick
really?
went and,
We were actually at a business meeting.
right, and he showed up and he thought for sure you'd be really happy to see him. But you really weren't.
And then after that, we had a reservation at a motel over in Sarasota. And Dick was there with us. He took us around to the Field Museum, I remember, to the art thing in the Field Museum, and he knew everything about the art that was there. He must have just had an art appreciation course in Ann Arbor.
Sarasota, Florida was a big art town.
Well, it was the Ringling Brothers Museum, I think, or somebody, I guess it was their museum, art museum.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna zoom into Mom here.
You gonna what?
Ask you a few questions now.
You want my sunglasses?
Okay.
Why?
I don't know you look.
No. Okay, tell me when you were born. The date.
January 12th, 1925.
And your parents names are,
Walter Thomas Brannigan and Marie Lorraine Clark Brannigan.
otherwise
Marie?
known as Wally and Lori.
Yeah.
Then when were they born? Do you know?
When were they
Remember?
born?
Yeah. You remember what date?
No, I don't.
What years they were born?
I don't remember. I was born 1925.
And how old was your mom when she had you?
I don't know.
But you were the oldest. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I was the oldest. Mother was through nursing school, so she had to be 21 when we got married at least.
So she was probably born around the turn of the century.
Yeah,
And your dad was older, right?
about 5 years older.
He was about 5 years older.
Yeah.
And what did he do for a living?
His father had a wholesale leather business in Rochester, New York. And he sold leather to shoe factories. It was a big deal. They had a lot lot of money.
Bulk leather?
Huh?
Bulk leather?
What leather?
They just sold leather.
They
in
sold
bulk.
wholesale leather to shoe companies to make shoes, anybody who made, and pocketbook and purses. And they made a lot of money.
Do you remember your grandparents? Do you remember your dad's parents?
I remember my grandmother Brannigan, she the only one was that I remember because she lived longer than mother's did. And I don't remember my grandfather. I don't remember him because he died, well, I must have been pretty young. I don't remember him at all.
And who came directly from Ireland? Was it him?
He did,
So
yes.
it was your parents'
He did.
parents that came from Ireland? Or your
My
parents'
father's mother and my father's
father?
father met,
On Ellis Island.
and I think on Ellis Island.
Do you know their
They,
names?
huh?
What were their names?
What were their names?
What were their names? Your grandparents?
Marie, wait a minute.
Which way doors is one? You got it there.
One of the back?
Grandma Brandon.
Which one is it?
Is it cracked open?
Yeah.
Grandpa Brandon. Francis Brannigan was my grandpa. And she's got a German name.
Knopf.
I know her name was Knupp, isn't it? He was from Ireland, she was from Germany. Her name was Helena Wellberga. I don't know how you even spell Wellberga.
She came from Germany. He came from Ireland, and
Then
they
they met
met.
at Ellis Island.
Her name was Walburga?
Helena Wellberga, and I don't know how to remember it
That
spelled.
was her middle name.
That was my
Well,
middle name.
Knopf was her last name?
K-N-O-P-F,
Wow.
German, Mary Brannigan.
So, okay, tell me about your mother then. Her name was.
Her name was Marie Lorraine Clark,
English?
and she was English, English and Irish. Her father's name was Julius, Julius. And my mother's mother's name was Lillian.
Lillian, last name?
Lillian Clark. Mother's was Lillian
What was her
Clark.
maiden name?
Lillian Clark.
They were both
She
Clarks?
married Brannigan.
No.
Not
No,
your mother's
No, your
mother.
mother's mother.
My mother's mother.
Your mother was a Clark. What was her mother's name? I don't know. It's probably in the Bible, but I can't think of it.
Ask me later, I'll think while we're talking.
All right, and you had, did your mother work?
My mother worked? Yes, she worked. She was a nurse. You know. She worked a lot. She kept us alive during the Depression, which your father forgot to even mention. That was one of the worst times of our lives, was the Depression. Everybody lost their jobs. We didn't have money for food.
Bread lines?
Hmm?
Bread lines?
Well, I was never in a bread, they were never in a bread line. They always seemed to get.
Because she worked. Was your father unemployed?
My father lost the leather business. She went to work as a nurse. If it weren't for mother, we wouldn't have eaten. Because she worked the whole time.
Who took care of you guys? You kids?
We hired women that we called, well, Amy called them maids. We never called them maids. We called them girls.
Didn't you tell us once that your family was one of the first families in Rochester to own a car?
To own a car?
Yeah.
Probably, because Daddy had a lot of money. Everything shot when the Depression came. Everybody lost everything like that. You couldn't even, we didn't have, he never mentioned that. We didn't have food to eat at times.
Where did your mother work? In the hospital?
She worked in the hospital. She was always, she did a lot of private duty. She worked privately and take care of one patient in the hospital. And when a patient went home, she would follow them. And sometimes she worked in the patient's home for months, up to months with the patients. And we wouldn't see her for that long. She'd live in the house.
You wouldn't see her? Well, she wouldn't even come home?
She'd come home maybe once in a while on the weekend, but she was with that patient.
So, and tell me about your sisters then.
I had two sisters. I had Martha, her name was Martha Lee, and
She was,
Lori.
they were born,
Marty was 2 years younger than I was. And Lori was way behind. I forgot how much younger. Do you remember how much younger?
About 10 years younger than
I
me.
was thinking it was born 15.
Well, she's 63 now, and Mary was 77, so she's 14.
Yeah, 14 years later, and she was a big surprise.
These people are not gonna-
Marty was a big, or Lori was a big surprise. What did your dad used to call her?
F5.
He had a nickname for her. What did he call her?
Do you remember what Daddy called her? Lori?
He called her,
No, I don't.
yeah, he had a nickname for her, something about, I can't remember now. I think Lori told me that when I saw her last. Marty's funeral. She said she heard your dad would introduce her as something.
Our,
Because he was in his 50s or something, wasn't he, when she was
Yeah.
born? Or 50?
he wasn't 60.
No, 50.
Well, Lori's 63 now, and her dad has been dead about 30 years, in the 70s. Well, we weren't living out here. We've been here since 76.
Well, anyway, just tell me, where were you born?
Rochester, New York.
In the hospital?
Was born in it was a maternity hospital. It was a small hospital that only took pregnant women. In Rochester, New York, I don't know the name of it.
Do you remember, your mom telling you anything about it? About when you were born?
No, I don't remember anything about it.
Were your parents born in Rochester too?
Yeah. Daddy was born in Canandaigua, New York, but that's not far out of Rochester. It's on the lake, Canandaigua Lake. My mother was born in Rochester. And she had a brother and a sister. And I can't remember what her father did.
Did you have a nickname?
No, always called me, Daddy called me Molly.
Oh, yeah.
I've always called Molly, by Daddy, only. Everybody else called me Mary Lou.
How did you come up with that name?
How'd you come up with it?
Yeah.
He knew when there was I don't know if there was a song. I think there was a song named Molly Brannigan.
Did you ever have any other relatives that lived with you?
Yeah, we did during the Depression. Mother's sister, Nomi Martin, husband lost his job, and they didn't have any money at all, and they had one daughter, Kat, and they had to move in with us. They moved in and lived with us, and we fed them and everything. I don't know how long during the Depression.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember it, because they took up all the bedrooms in our house. Marty and I had to sleep together, and we always had our own room, and now, Leonie and Mart had one room, and Pat in another.
Tell me about the time, your dad gave you each a quarter, you and Marty. He gave you each a quarter during the Depression to go buy something.
And we lost it. It was in the snow. And we lost it. No, it wasn't in the snow. It was in the grass. We lost it in the grass, I thought. Because we thought we couldn't, we looked, we cried all afternoon looking for that money. We still didn't, we used to give every Saturday, give us 10 cents to go to a movie. And I don't know if that was part of that movie money or what, but we were scared to death. We knew he didn't have money in the first place to give us. And we never did find it.
What movies did you like to see? Do you remember any
I
movie?
don't remember any movies. I don't, there were mostly cartoons and kids movies, I don't remember, but we went every Saturday afternoon, depression or not.
Did you, what was the naughtiest thing you ever did?
I was never easy.
Yes, you
I don't
Nobody's
remember.
perfect.
I don't know about that.
I know you tried to tell us that you were, but I'm sure that you did something to your sisters, maybe. You and Marty do something. I bet you Marty was a troublemaker.
Oh, she
For
was.
some reason, I get the feeling that.
I had to watch
She
her
was-
all the time. She was my,
Right, see, I have a feeling that she maybe was somebody you had to watch.
she wasn't wild or anything.
No? Did you ever fight?
No, we didn't fight much.
No?
No, I don't think any more than anybody else. She was younger than I was, and I always let her know that.
Yeah. So you don't remember any favorite movies when you were a kid? Or did you
No,
ever-
they were always Saturday afternoon, they were always cowboys.
Did you ever meet anybody famous?
Any time in my life,
Yeah.
well, probably a lot of people I had patience with, but I don't remember now. I had patience and strong.
Do you remember your girlfriends' names in grade school?
Yeah, in grade school, my best friend was Marjorie Howell. We lived across the street. And when we were kids, if you wanted your girlfriend, you wanted to play with somebody, you'd go yell out in front. They'd say, call for me. Did you do that when you were kids?
Call for me?
Yeah. I'd be playing all day with somebody and it was time to go in for dinner at night and I'd leave them to go in for dinner and I'd say, call for me in the morning.
Oh,
We'd go yell in front of their house.
or you just yell their name?
We'd yell their
Yeah,
name
I
until
think
they
I
came
remember.
to the door.
I think I remember doing that.
Do you remember that time, Dick? What's your name?
Fluffy. Did you remember your first boyfriend?
Well, I liked Billy Ector. You know, right after Amy and I were married, we went to a movie in, someplace, down in Rochester, I think. And who was ahead of us in line for tickets was Billy Ector, that I hadn't seen since I was in elementary school. And we
I
were
thought he
dating.
was in med school.
Did he remember
No.
you?
No, he didn't even see me.
Oh.
But he was that was in
You wanna
elementary
play?
school, when I was
You wanna play? Yeah.
Get strong.
You wanna play?
I
You
dated
get
a
sick of
few
it.
med students and interns, but I don't even remember any names.
Were you a good student?
Yeah, I was.
What was your favorite subject?
Well, what do you want to know?
What was your favorite?
I like
Science?
Science, yeah.
Math?
And science and math, my two favorites.
Is that why you became a nurse?
I became a nurse because my mother was one. I think that was the main reason. And
She-
she talked about it all the time.
She must have
said
liked it.
She did private duty and she'd come home at night. If she came home at night, a lot of nights she'd stay with them. She'd talk about them and what she did, and then she taught. I was going to be a nurse from the day I was born.
And then how did you decide where you were going to go to college?
I decided because mother always worked at Strong Memorial Hospital in Rochester. And that's where I wanted to go. And then I went to the U of R School of Nursing, University of Rochester, School of Nursing.
Did you live there on the campus?
Uh-huh.
Who was your roommate?
Joan McLaughlin.
No.
That was after you graduated. Well, you were with, so, he's talking when you were in Hollywood.
When you were in college, did you?
Joan McLaughlin was there.
Oh, okay.
she was a nurse.
Jean Domenico,
And Jean Domenico, but Joe McLaughlin was my only roommate.
Fred West.
But she didn't ask me all those names.
Tell us.
Okay, so, and you liked school? Did you like college a lot?
Yeah, I did.
Didn't you want to try and marry some rich doctor?
No, nobody asked me to marry him.
No? You dated some doctors though.
Yeah,
Didn't
I
you
did.
date one of the Eastmans?
No,
I thought you were dated one of the Eastman boys.
no, I didn't even know that Eastman's had a boy. Anyway, no, Eastman's, there was no Eastman around. The Eastman school was named after George
George
Eastman.
Eastman. He lived in Rochester.
Yeah,
Is that
Eastman
his-
Kodak.
Right.
But I didn't even know an Eastman.
Oh.
The most of the men I knew were medical students. And I dated them, but I never fell in love till I met this guy next to me.
All right. And do you remember your first date?
With Amy,
Yeah.
do you remember our first date?
Well, I just told you, we were at a party at Laurel,
Oh, that's
how we ever got onto that, I don't know.
We went to a party, one of our friends in Albion had a party.
She was a gal I went to school with, Valley Victoria, but,
And I don't know how I got invited to that party, because I hardly knew her.
I think it was set up as a blind date.
What was your first job when you got out of college then?
I worked for Dr. Forrest Young, a very famous, he was famous too.
Tell me about your.
Plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery.
Tell me your favorite plastic surgery story.
I don't have any favorite stories. Oh, the boobs, I know, I remember.
Well, let's hear that one. That story.
I don't know,
You
that's,
did a breast reduction surgery.
You have to take the nipples off.
You were assisting in a breast reduction surgery.
yeah, well, we did that a lot.
Right, but there was one story that you used to
And
tell.
all right, so that, I was always the instruments nurse. I had to handle the instruments, and before, I was supposed to know what the surgeon wanted next before he put his hand out and asked me. I was supposed to know, and I did, learn. And this one woman was having her breast reduced because they were too big. And the first thing you do is cut off the nipples, and you put them in a piece of wet gauze, saline gauze, in a separate dish. And you wait till the end of the surgery. He takes all of the fat off that you don't want, makes them smaller, and then at the very end, sews back the nipples on, and I lost one of the nipples. One time it ended. I couldn't find it. And we had these square pieces of gauze, about 2 inches square, and we had them piled, and they were all sterile on our table, it was sterile. And you'd wrap the nipple in one of those plastic things, put it in a basin, here for one and here for the other. And the second one was gone. We looked all over. And we had a pail right next to us, just a little dirty stuff in. The orderlies went through those pails looking for it. I don't remember if I found it.
What'd the doctor say to you?
What did he say? He didn't say anything. There wasn't
I thought he
any-
told you he was gonna take one of yours if you couldn't find it.
Ooh, oh.
Okay, so,
You think if we got a cat like this, that Dick would ever come stay with us again?
sure, Dick loves kitties. He just doesn't like being around them. So, so that was your first, did you really like being a nurse?
I loved it.
You loved being a nurse?
I loved operating room. I liked
That was
the
your
whole
favorite?
thing. Yeah,
Nursing jobs, operating room nurse?
especially for the plastic surgeon. He was famous, and he had a lot of people coming from all over the United States to have different surgeries done.
Do you remember how much money you made
No,
as a nurse?
no, I have no idea what I made. Do you, Amy, have any idea? I don't know. It was good money.
Do you remember your first birth experience?
You mean having you?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
We were in the hospital. Where was it? Where were you born?
Tracy.
Tracy. I don't even remember being in labor with you. I don't remember labor with anybody.
Oh, you don't? Well, you were with her long.
I bet your dad does.
How long was I in labor with her?
2 days, I think. Well, I'm sure it was 2 days.
Well, 2 days it wasn't hard labor. I'd have been dead.
You were in the labor room, but they didn't send you home to the hospital.
But you were little. You were tiny. How much did you weigh? How much did she weigh?
She wasn't big, she was 6'7" or so.
That's pretty small nowadays.
Small.
That's pretty tiny. 6-pound baby.
I don't know.
I think she was 5 something.
You got that all written
It's
down?
written down. I'm 6'7", I think, like you said. Um, who was your first grandchild?
Jeffrey.
Yeah, Jeff.
How old? How
She
old?
was Jeff.
When was he born? Do you remember what year Jeff was born?
Yes, I do. I remember it's about 1979.
Oh. Tell me the story about when Jim came to tell you about that. That's kind of a funny story, isn't
We
it?
were in bed, asleep. Jim standing at the foot of the bed and said, "Well, Dad, got something to tell you.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
We had a baby. We didn't even know Mary was pregnant."
Was it
Yeah,
Father's Day too?
Huh?
Wasn't it Father's Day?
No. No.
Who was Jeff's birthday?
That might have been.
Jeff?
Jeff was born in May. Jeff, might have been Mother's Day or something. Right? No, I don't know.
I don't
No,
know.
Jeff's birthday's in June.
Okay, well, that would have been closer to Father's Day. I don't know.
And so he was a big surprise.
It was a big surprise.
When did you first see him? Do you remember when you first saw Jeff?
Well, I don't think
Did you
it
go
was
see him?
long after that. I mean, we probably went the next day, but that much I don't remember about.
How many grandchildren do you have
I
now?
remember Lisa more than
2.
2, 3, 4, 1, 5.
5.
The oldest one is,
Jeff.
and Jeff must be about 21 now, or
Well, he'd be
22?
about 22. He'll probably be 1979 or 1980. 1980 he was born. So he'll be 22.
And the youngest is,
Youngest is Francis.
Little girl.
Dick's baby,
Yeah.
and she's
How old is she? She's
5 months.
5 months. And I've never seen her.
Yes, you have.
She'll be 6 months, April 12th,
Yep.
which is only a couple days away. And at the same time, we're gonna have a real
Yes, I've seen her. She
old
made
daughter.
dinner at our
Our
house.
old daughter is gonna be 50. In a couple of days.
Yeah.
I know. They're all wrapped up there.
Hold on.
Animal. They're all wrapped up.
Keep talking.
There.
We'll just keep
I want
talking.
a kitty cat like this. I could stand a cat like this. It's good company. But then we'd never see Dick again. The only reason they've got cats is to
I don't know.
keep Dick better.
Where's Lisa? Ask her. Is this on, Molly?
Yes, it's on. It's running. You see the light blinking? That means we are being photographed.
Photograph.
No, we're being filmed. I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
What's your favorite vacation you ever took? Just the two of you. Oh, tell us about your honeymoon a little bit.
You tell us about your honey.
Okay.
Oh, our honeymoon was nice.
We-
Took what little money we got most of the Christmas presents, or wedding presents, and went all through New England for about 12, 14 days. And still got the book of everything we spent.
Really?
Or it cost like $1.10 for a motel room or something like that, and 50 cents for breakfast.
Really?
We still have that book that
I
you
know we
kept,
do.
everything we spent. We even had some pictures of it. Well, of course, our favorite vacation was Exeter, Ireland, which
Yes.
we really enjoyed.
Very much.
And departed, going to England. Couple
The part of
days.
what?
Well, it was a fun night being in England for a couple of days, driving around the English countryside, but there really was no countryside.
No countryside in England?
No, it was just all city.
We were in England, but Ireland was beautiful.
Yeah, Ireland was beautiful. I'd love to go back.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get everybody together to go to Ireland someday, and I know some people have done that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Friends of ours did it last year.
Where was your favorite place in Ireland?
Yeah, I don't know if we had a favorite place. We loved the first place we went to. No. I can't remember the name
See
of
any
it.
relatives?
Huh?
See any old relatives?
No, we couldn't find any.
We understand most of the Brannigan clan was probably in the northern part of Ireland. We never did get up any further north than Galway.
And the Brannigans, there were some down south, but they weren't. They spelled it B-R-A-N-A instead of N-N-I.
There's another way to spell that.
I read somewhere where it's probably Brangan, Brangan. In that, when they came over to Ellis Island, the Americans just stuck the extra.
Oh, no, I don't think that's right. Where'd you read that?
I thought I saw somewhere, when I was talking to Mike, I thought that I saw somewhere Brangan. He had a map or something.
Well, there could be both. Brannigan. Brannigan knows. Flanagan, any name like that is Irish. Brannigan isn't. I don't think.
No, it is. It's on a map of Ireland.
It is?
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
I thought of things when you were talking to Amy, but I forgot.
Let's say how lucky we are to have 4 kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. We had 4 nice kids. Nobody gave us any
We're
trouble
blessed.
much. What?
Jim did.
Jim didn't do anything trouble. I had to get him out of jail and Dick out of jail once, but
What for?
Dick D. Rye, Jim had an illegal plant in his backyard.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't Jim caught for shoplifting once?
Yeah,
What?
but that was a stupid thing.
Shoplifting at
It wasn't
Myers?
Who did?
Jim?
Yeah, but that was no more of a, that was a simple mistake. It was
Fishing pole, right?
No, he was walking out paying for that, he had something else he just stuck in his pocket, what, worth hardly anything, and forgot about it. I don't, that's completely unintentional, what I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay. That's what he told you, at least.
I think it was, I really do.
Yeah,
I
I'm
really-
just kidding.
I really do.
Well, speaking of Jim, where is he?
I don't know.
Did he take off somewhere?
I don't think it
Okay. Sure you don't want to say anything else? I don't know how much of that last stuff got cut off, that Mom was saying. I think you're just talking about having babies.
does.
What was the worst birth experience you had?
The worst?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you remember any of the worst?
No. First real problem was Tom the first 3 months when he had that colic. His tail was raw and took a piece of meat.
I thought I remember you having a blood clot in your leg right after Tom was born.
Oh, she did, right in her crotch, right in her
Oh,
groin.
in my crotch.
Right in
Yeah.
her groin, she did, that was,
I
yeah.
remember you being kind of sickly when you got home from having Tom.
I was old.
Well,
It's not that old anymore.
I know, but I thought I was.
There's 60-year-olds having babies now. How stupid.
Who? 60-year-old?
well, she's a jet.
No, there are. There was a 64-year-old woman in. Yeah.
Yeah, I read the other day 140.
40's no big deal anymore.
There's no deal. Oh, that's still on?
I guess so.
Think of something, Amy. Need a smartphone in this house.
Oh, she bites those ones. Look at those ears.
Hey. What was your favorite thing to do with the kids? When did you go back to work?
What?
When did you go back to work?
When did I go back to work?
Oh, not until Tommy was about 15 and we moved to California and she got tired of playing bridge and hanging around the pool and they were calling her up at 8 o'clock in the morning to play and they never wanted to quit at 5.
Well, tell me about your job at Disneyland.
So she went to work.
Well, I went to work for Disneyland when?
After about 3 years at La Habra working part-time,
I worked at La Habra Hospital and got tired of it.
too hard.
It was a lot of hard work. You know, it was older. So I went to Disneyland. And they asked, somebody said they're hiring nurses at Disneyland, and that sounded good, and I went, and it was fun.
Part-time there too.
What?
It was part-time there too, but they seem to end up
I
working
ended up
both places
full-time.
a lot more than you wanted to, but
Yeah. And how long did I work there?
about 2 years, 2.5 maybe.
There he is.
I loved it. I'd like to work again now.
Oh, Muffy was there too? And Francis.
Must be talking to Dick. Okay, well,
Wow.
That Dick I was
should we
talking
just say adios?
It's Jeff.
to?
And they
Jeff?
saw Dick and Muffy?
Yeah, Dick,
Oh,
Dick
great.
actually called Jeff, right?
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's, took him out to eat. And
Isn't that
Oh,
nice?
Where was Jeff?
San
When was this?
Francisco. They were in San Francisco. Or
You're gonna hit that TV set.
When?
Mom and Dad and
Weekend.
Molly are here. Did we tell you? Yeah. Yeah.
Hill.
Okay.
So what's the deal? When's your last day